Well, howdy, y'all. Well, welcome to another edition of M vs. NPR. Now, this is an older issue, or an older article, but it's shorter, so I'm just going to get right to it.
The Trump administration is moving to weaken the Civil Rights era Fair Housing Act. That's according to housing advocates who say a proposed rule by the administration would make it much harder to bring lawsuits alleging discrimination in housing. Conservative groups applaud the move and say it would stop frivolous lawsuits. NPR's Chris Arnold has obtained a draft of the rule, which is not yet public, and he has this report.
The rule targets a powerful weapon that's used in discrimination cases. It's called disparate impact, and that means that basically to show discrimination in a lawsuit, you don't have to prove that there's some guy working at, say, a bank who refuses to make loans to people of color. You just have to show that a company has a business practice that, on its face, may not purposefully discriminate, but it has that effect.
And here's what's absurd about this. Now, they're just imagining and making stuff up, which is something I noticed a lot of liberals nowadays are doing. A lot of people on the left. They're just imagining and making stuff up. All you have to do is find where there's inequity in outcome, and then find someone before that outcome along the process to blame them for it. And then you sue them, and you get a bunch of money. So they're just imagining, they're saying, hey, look, here's an unequal outcome. Therefore, that's proof of discrimination and racism. That's simply absurd.
Important because it allows us to really get at discrimination that's not intentional.
That's Nikki.
Yeah, they want to get at discrimination that is not intentional. They said it themselves. They want to do things and hold people accountable for things that they did not intend to do. It's like manslaughter. It's the manslaughter of racism. It's race slaughter. Absurd.
Bailey. She's a lawyer with the nonprofit Center for Responsible Lending, and she says the Trump administration's new rule would severely restrict this very important tool for fighting discrimination in housing.
It's huge because it allows us to have remedies for a large set of communities without having to demonstrate each individual action of discrimination.
It's huge because they can just go to where there's an unequal outcome and not have to demonstrate any sort of intent of causing that outcome. They just have to say, hey, here's an unequal outcome, and then hold somebody before that responsible. I can't believe it.
Okay, here's how this works. A fair housing group is right now in the midst of suing Bank of America. It's alleging that when the bank foreclosed on houses, in recent years it treated the vacant houses very differently in white versus minority neighborhoods.
Imagine doing that. Imagine doing that. There are 2 vacant lots on my block right now. And I live in a not so bad area. I live in a pretty good area. And yeah, there are some really expensive homes on this area. And then there's some really low-end apartment housing in this area too. A very diverse area. And I get what they're saying, but it's actually the community that takes care of this problem. Sure, it may fall on the homeowner, technically the bank, but the bank is not a real estate agency. It's not a property management agency. It's a bank. And I won't get into the whole thing about banks giving loans out to homeowners. I won't get into that. I understand that mortgages are how the vast majority of American homeowners get homes. I understand that. But it's to think that a black community and a white community treat the vacant lots in their community differently. Well, I mean, let's just say that that's really not the bank's fault.
Wanda Anafua lives next to one of those houses in Baltimore. She works in accounting.
She lives in Baltimore. All right, enough said.
Owns her own house and raised her kids there. She says it's a nice, quiet street. But after Bank of America foreclosed on the house next door,
the grass wasn't being mowed. There were no windows upstairs. So you have a bad rainstorm. And I don't know what was going on with the roof. Water would get in.
Well, so let's not blame the previous homeowners. Let's not blame the people who shattered the windows for whatever reason. And let's not just go and mow the lawn for them. Because I won't get into that. If you own pets in the neighbor yard next door, grass is out of control. It's in your own best interest to go next door and mow the grass. if not for yourself, for your pets.
There was rats running around.
Anafua says
Yeah, that's absurd. I live in a fairly nice neighborhood, and with 2 abandoned lots, and one of them's getting constructed on right now. But yeah, I see cats kill mice around here all the time. The neighborhood cats just leave dead mice and rats around as like trophies all the time. Yeah, it's called nature. Do you live anywhere near a dumpster? Is there a dumpster within 100 yards of your house? Well, then guess what? You're going to have rats.
she called the city and the bank repeatedly. Not much changed. Then some guy started living in the house.
It was a squatter living in that house. It was a guy that was going in and out of that house. It was no electricity or anything on it because it looked just pitch black.
So don't call the police and have the guy kicked out. Don't, maybe do something about it. Just let the guy set up squatters' rights and then complain that he's doing it. All right, fine, whatever.
Lisa Rice is the president of the National Fair Housing Alliance, which is bringing the lawsuit. She says her group looked at foreclosed houses in more than 70 different communities across the country with comparable homeownership rates and other similarities. And
in the white communities that we looked at, the story was completely different. The grass was mowed. The doors were secure. The windows were not broken. We didn't see trash and debris.
Yeah. I wonder why that is. Now, let's not get into maybe the bank is responsible for maintaining the property. Let's not get into that. You're saying that in white communities, they didn't have problems with the grass being mowed, doors being secured, windows not being broken, and trash and debris lying about. That probably has more to do with the community than the bank.
Bank of America said in a statement that it denies the claims in the lawsuit and that it's committed to, quote, sustainable homeownership for multicultural clients and communities. But remember, a key point of disparate impact lawsuits is that companies might be discriminating even if they don't intend to. The Supreme Court in 2015 upheld disparate impacts while also imposing some limitations. Still, many corporations and conservatives do not like it.
There are always going to be racially disproportionate results for any policy.
Roger.
Oh my God, he said it. This guy said it. I can't believe he said it. Reverend, you got bells as big as church bells. I swear.
Clegg is president of the Center for Equal Opportunity. It's a conservative think tank that focuses on civil rights issues. And he says these disparate impact cases are often unfair to defendants because they find discrimination where it's not actually happening.
If you have a landlord who says, I'm not going to rent to people with a history of violent crime, the fact that that has a racially disproportionate result does not make it discrimination.
He said it. I can't believe this guy's saying it. So yeah, that's true. Equality does not guarantee equity. Let me repeat that for anyone who doesn't understand that. Equality of opportunity does not guarantee equity of outcome.
Clegg says this legal approach results in a lot of unfair lawsuits. And he says the Trump administration's new rule will provide clarity about the limits of its use. Nikki Trebali says, though, the rule goes way beyond that.
It really makes it more difficult to bring disparate impact cases, and then it limits the damages for discrimination.
Bailey.
Now let me say, I do not agree with caps on damages. Or even punitive damages. I don't agree with that. There should be no cap. I won't go into that long argument over there. But, yes, punishing people just because there's an inequitable outcome to their policy seems absurd. It just seems absurd.
Says with African American home ownership rates at their lowest level in more than 50 years, this could set up more roadblocks. For its part, the Housing and Urban Development Department says it can't comment yet, but in an earlier statement, HUD Secretary Ben Carson said, quote, HUD remains committed to making sure that housing-related policies and practices treat people fairly.
Now, did you hear what Ben Carson, I got a video coming up on him, but Ben Carson said treat people fairly. Just because you treat them fairly at the beginning doesn't mean they're going to have equal outcomes at the end. just because you treat people fairly. In fact, by definition of treating people fairly, you're going to have unequal outcomes. Just look at a racetrack. Look at the racetrack. But I won't get into that. This drive to just sort of equally and indiscriminately loan out money for people to buy homes is what led to the housing bubble and the Great Recession a little over 10 years ago. Yeah, this kind of equality, equity garbage is what causes economies to crash. But yeah, whatever.
Chris Arnold, NPR News.
I'm just going to move on. All right. Well, you guys have a nice day. And always remember to go your own way. Yours truly, Ed.